Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday I was pleasantly surprised by a 2-hour gameplay showcase from Gunfire Games, the developer behind Remnant 2. And they dropped a lot of fresh information about the game that I will sum up for you in just a few minutes if you don't want to watch the whole 2-hour livestream. For all the informations prior to this event, check out my first video about Remnant 2. I sorted everything into the following categories. Firstly, I will talk about some small features, then we talk about changes to the existing systems, then about the new cool features, then some stuff that has been teased but not further explained, and lastly, I will show you one of the new weapon mods and one of the boss weapons they obtained during the live stream. A link to the original live stream is in the video description, of course, but let's go. Starting with the small features. Firstly, we have a flashlight now that really works. And this, in addition with some very dark areas they showed in the footage, makes for some eerie feeling situations that looked really cool. And in general, you could see there's a huge uplift in visual fidelity, although the livestream material is of course not of the best quality. They also changed a little bit how rings and your necklace works. Now we have 4 ring slots instead of 2 in the first game, and the rings are more focused on utility and your neck item is more focused on damage, to prevent you from just stacking damage over and over and focusing more on the utility side of things, which is a minor but very interesting balancing change. We now have an auto pick-up feature for scrap, which is the money in this game. You still have to manually loot anything else, but scrap you will now pick up as you just move over it. And they confirmed that every boss, again, has a very special way to kill them to obtain certain items. Now moving on to changes to the existing systems. Armor has changed a lot. There are no longer stats on armor beside weight and some resistances, and you cannot level up your armor, so it is more a cosmetic item and you can tweak your character to look the way you want him or her to look. In general, the whole power level and environmental level system has changed to the better. So in the first game you had the problem that you can level up, but you did not really see at which level your environment is, and you could force the environment to stay at a low level to a certain degree if you are not leveling up, which contradicts the whole idea of leveling up and getting more powerful. Now the base system here is the same, but now you cannot force your environment to stay at a low level, and you have a clear indicator, more on that later in the next section, which level your environment really is. So it's not this guesswork, okay, I'm more powerful, I'm overpowered, underleveled, and so on. You now have a very clear indicator. This is the environment level, this is your power level that is determined by your overall level for your class and the level of your gear. So all in all, a very nice overhaul of the existing system that was very unclear in a lot of ways. They also clearly made the statement that they improved the boss fights in terms of ads. So there are a lot less ads, and if there are ads, they are really tied to some special occurrences, but you will not manage to kill ads. You can focus a lot more on the boss fight itself. This is a very good example how they listened to player feedback, because that was something that came up very often for the first game. Now moving on to the new cool features in the game. We have now shields in the game. They did not show any shields, but there are certain skills that work along them. They also overhauled the whole melee system. Melee weapons now make a lot more damage and have dedicated moveset, and all in all it's a much more viable option. And combine this with the feature that we now have shields, I wonder if you can really build a sword and board style character. But to have this option at all is just fantastic. The whole map system is overhauled. We now have a clear 3D map that also showcases the verticality of the environment, a lot like the map in Returnal, which is a good thing. In addition, we now have a clear level indicator for the environment at the minimap. This is a small but very nice feature. They also added new features to your Dragonheart, the healing item in Remnant 2. Dragonhearts now have, by default, 3 open equipment slots, where you can slot equipment that you can find in the open world, like more stagger damage, more critical damage, and so on. They even showed a ring in the game where you can add an additional 2 slots, so more variety and more options to tinker around with your build, which is just fantastic. We also had a huge update on how all this environmental storytelling and the non-linear main story is working. So there is some kind of overarching storyline, and it is not explained for now how this really works. But you can, for example, choose your starting area. You're not bound to one starting area. And every time the area you are in is created, you can have events within events. So it means you can have a dungeon and you go through this dungeon and someone else is going through the same dungeon but has another event placed in the dungeon. So for example, you have a dungeon in the dungeon. And it's just crazy, and it's such a cool feature for replayability. And every time you experience a region, and the whole game is centered around this idea to replay the game to obtain all the items, that all sounds very intriguing to me. And the developers were clearly very proud on how the system works. In addition to the world bosses, story bosses, and some minor bosses they showed in the video footage, they also talked about aberrations, which are some kind of super elite enemies. Unfortunately, they did not show any of these, but they talked a lot about them. So now we not only have the standard elite enemies, we have also these aberrations, whatever they are looking like, but sounds very cool. Then we have some stuff that was teased, but not really explained. For once, on your weapon, now you not only have a weapon mod slot like the Ashes of War features from Elden Ring or from the first Remnant game, you now have a second slot that's called Mutator. So we have an additional layer to tinker around with the mod or with the weapon, and that is just cool by itself. Another thing the developer stated, by accident or not, we have 5 starting archetypes that we can choose from, but that are not all the archetypes in the game. So it was hinted that you can unlock or progress through the story to find more archetypes later. No specific number was given on how many. And at the end of the live stream, they showcased one of the new weapon mods and one of the new boss weapons. Tremor looks really cool, and the boss weapon they showed is a variant of the riot jet gun from the first game. It is very cool in itself, but as you can see, it marks enemies with this red glow, and then you can execute an additional feature with another button prompt that drops some swords from the sky on the enemies that are marked by the riot rifle. Very cool feature. And the test dummies you are seeing in the footage, yep, they will stay in game, so you can tinker around with your build and test it all out in a shooting range area with these test dummies. Very nice addition. All in all, you could really see how much they care about the game and that it took all the feedback from the first game and just expanded every existing system and added new layers to it. The build variety that is possible here with the archetypes and the cross-class system and the additional slots on the dragon hearts and now 4 rings, and it's just amazing. I will play the hell out of this game and make a lot of videos about builds and everything else, so stay tuned if you want to learn more about Remnant 2 in the future. For now, this is all about Remnant 2. I hope you enjoyed this video and thank you very much for watching. Take good care of yourself and have a nice day.